When the Luftwaffe misjudged the Hurricane. In the summer of 1940, as the German Luftwaffe prepared to bring Britain to its knees, its intelligence officers briefed their fighter and bomber crews with supreme confidence. They described the Royal Air Force's main interceptor, the Hawker Hurricane, as outdated, sluggish, and hopelessly inferior to the sleek Messerschmitt Bf 109. On paper, the assessment seemed reasonable. The Hurricane's top speed was nearly 20 miles per hour slower, its airframe was made largely of wood and fabric, and its design philosophy appeared rooted in the First World War. Yet in the smoke-filled skies above France and the Channel, those same, obsolete, fighters would prove to be the backbone of Britain's survival. The Germans, dazzled by technical specifications, were about to learn that wars are not won on paper. The obsolete fighter Britain relied upon. The Hurricane began life in the early 1930s, when Britain's Air Ministry still hesitated to fund all-metal monoplane fighters. Sidney Cam of Hawker Aircraft designed the machine as a bridge between eras: steel tube fuselage, fabric-covered rear surfaces, and thick wooden wings that could withstand immense punishment. It was, in essence, a modern engine bolted onto proven craftsmanship. When it entered service in 1937, it was already overshadowed by its glamorous stable-mate, the supermarine Spitfire. The Spitfire was faster, sleeker, and photogenic. The Hurricane looked boxy and old-fashioned. Yet the Hurricane was simpler to build, easier to repair, and far more forgiving for young pilots fresh from training schools. By the outbreak of war in September 1939, Britain possessed only a few hundred Spitfires, but over 500 Hurricanes. Quantity, as history would soon prove, could become quality in its own right. Luftwaffe intelligence. Confidence before the storm. German intelligence officers compiled performance charts comparing the Bf 109E to the Hurricane Mki. The results were comforting. The Messerschmitt climbed faster, dove harder, and carried cannon that could shred fabric-covered wings. In Luftwaffe briefing rooms, maps of southern England were dotted with bomber routes. British opposition was treated as a formality. Many German pilots, veterans of Spain, had already faced outdated biplanes and expected more of the same. To them, the Hurricane represented a transitional type, an evolutionary dead end. The Germans believed that once the RAF's few modern Spitfires were destroyed, the Hurricanes would crumble. What no chart could measure, however, was the Hurricane's ability to absorb punishment and keep flying, or the spirit of the men who flew her. Baptism of Fire. France, May 1940. The Hurricane's real test arrived not over Britain, but over the fields of northern France. When the Wehrmacht invaded on the 10th of May 1940, several RAF squadrons equipped with Hurricanes deployed to aid the collapsing French front. Within days they met the full weight of the Luftwaffe. What followed shocked German observers. Hurricanes, diving through formations of Heinkel 111s and Dornier 17s, tore the bombers apart with 8 synchronized Browning machine guns. The sheer density of fire, 160 rounds per second, produced walls of tracer that no bomber crew could ignore. While Messerschmitt escorts managed to score victories, their obsolete opponents often limped home riddled with holes yet still controllable. Paul Ritchie, an RAF pilot in France, later recalled that the Hurricane could take more damage than seemed possible, and still land safely. Even Adolf Galland, one of Germany's leading aces, admitted that the Hurricane's agility in a tight turn made it a dangerous adversary. During those chaotic weeks, the RAF lost many brave men, but their Hurricanes destroyed hundreds of German aircraft. The supposed relic had proven itself a deadly fighter. Britain stands alone. After France fell, the Channel became the front line. Britain faced invasion, and the burden of its air defense rested on fighter command. The Spitfire captured the headlines, but the Hurricane filled the squadrons. Of roughly 620 fighters available in July 1940, 2/3 were Hurricanes. The nation's survival depended on them. Aircraft factories in Coventry and Langley worked around the clock, producing one new Hurricane every hour at the height of the crisis. Mechanics at dispersed airfields became magicians, patching bullet holes with doped fabric and wooden battens. Pilots often returned from missions to find ground crews already refueling and rearming their battered machines for another scramble. The Hurricane was the workhorse, the unsung defender of Britain's skies. Engineering genius behind simplicity. To outsiders, the Hurricane's construction looked archaic. Its rear fuselage was covered in linen, its frame a lattice of steel tubes, its wings thick compared with the razor-thin Spitfire. Yet this, old-fashioned, structure was a masterpiece of practical engineering. The fabric surfaces absorbed small caliber hits without catastrophic damage, bullets passed through rather than shattering the airframe. The thick wings housed fuel tanks and gun bays safely spaced apart, reducing the risk of explosions. Damaged components could be replaced in hours with parts made by small workshops across the country, something impossible with the Spitfire's intricate stressed skin design. German intelligence never accounted for repairability. They measured performance in seconds and meters per second, not in survivability or maintainability. In war, however, a fighter that can return to the air tomorrow is worth more than one that wins a race today. The Battle of Britain begins. By late July, the Luftwaffe commenced Adlerangriff, the Eagle attack, intended to annihilate the RAF. Each day, radar stations detected incoming raids, and squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires rose to intercept. Strategy dictated that Spitfires engaged the Bf-109 escorts while Hurricanes attacked the bombers. This division of labor suited the Hurricane perfectly. Against the large, slow bombers, its stable gun platform and heavy firepower were devastating. Squadron after squadron reported entire Heinkel or Dornier formations disintegrating under concentrated bursts. The psychological effect on Luftwaffe crews was immense. Once confident of daylight impunity, many now jettisoned bombs prematurely or broke formation when Hurricanes appeared. The 15th of August 1940, the greatest air battle. Mid-August marked a turning point. The Luftwaffe launched a massive assault, committing nearly 2,000 aircraft across multiple sectors in a single day. It became known as the greatest air battle. Hurricanes bore the brunt of the defense. In the north, No. 72 Squadron engaged enemy formations over Yorkshire. In the south, No. 43 and No. 601 squadrons fought running battles from Tangmere to Southampton. By sunset, German losses exceeded 75 aircraft, more than 3 times the RAF's. Many of those kills were scored by Hurricane units. German commanders were astonished. Their intelligence estimates had promised swift victory. Instead, attrition was mounting faster than they could replace crews. Pilots on both sides began to respect their opponents. RAF flyers admired the Bf-109's climb and cannon firepower. German pilots grudgingly acknowledged the Hurricane's resilience and accuracy. Combat reality had overturned every pre-war assumption. The 15th of September 1940, the decisive day. 2 weeks later came the battle that sealed the campaign's fate, the 15th of September, now celebrated as Battle of Britain Day. That morning, radar detected the largest raid yet, hundreds of bombers heading for London, escorted by swarms of fighters. Churchill visited Fighter Command's headquarters at Uxbridge and watched the operations table fill with red and blue markers. Over southern England, Hurricanes from dozens of squadrons intercepted the bomber streams. Pilots described a sky alive with contrails, gunfire, and burning aircraft. The Hurricane's sturdy frame allowed it to dive straight into enemy formations, firing short, brutal bursts. Sergeant Pilot Ray Holmes famously rammed a Dornier after expending all ammunition, cutting it in half above central London. By evening, the Luftwaffe had lost nearly 60 aircraft, and Hitler postponed the invasion of Britain indefinitely. Analysis later revealed that Hurricanes accounted for more than half of the enemy losses that day. The obsolete fighter had saved a nation. Pilot testimonies, voices from the cockpit. First-hand accounts paint a vivid picture of those desperate months. Douglas Bader, one of Britain's most celebrated aces, often reminded listeners that while the Spitfire won the publicity, the Hurricane won the battle. Alan Deere recalled that the Hurricane's wide undercarriage made takeoffs and landings far safer for exhausted pilots returning to fields pockmarked with craters. From the German side, Oberleutnant Hans von Hahn admitted that his squadron underestimated the British machine. He described how bomber formations disintegrated under 8-gun salvos that seemed to cut through the air like a saw. Maintenance crews, too, left invaluable testimony. They spoke of replacing entire wing panels overnight, of sewing patches into bullet-torn fabric with the same care as tailors mending a uniform. The Hurricane inspired loyalty, not for beauty, but for dependability. The numbers tell the truth. When the smoke cleared in October 1940, the statistics were unequivocal. Of all German aircraft destroyed during the Battle of Britain, 55% fell to hurricanes. The remainder were shared between Spitfires, anti-aircraft guns, and other defenses. Fighter Command's own reports confirmed the pattern. Hurricanes averaged more sorties, engaged more bombers, and suffered slightly higher losses simply because they fought more often. Their operational readiness remained remarkable. A damaged hurricane could return to service within 24 hours. The supposed inferiority of the type became one of history's great misjudgments. Lessons in engineering and doctrine. The Hurricane's triumph carried deep lessons for military planners. It proved that survivability, stability, and ease of repair could outweigh raw performance in a prolonged campaign. The Spitfire may have evolved into a world-class interceptor, but the Hurricane's design philosophy influenced post-war aircraft built for ruggedness and mass production. The RAF learned, too, that mixed-type forces offered strategic flexibility. Spitfires protected the high-altitude approaches, Hurricanes guarded convoys, airfields, and cities. Together they formed a balanced defense that frustrated every German plan. Around the world, air forces took note. Soviet designers studying British combat reports integrated similar construction methods into their yak and lag fighters. Even American engineers recognized the advantage of field-serviceable aircraft, a lesson later embodied in the P-47 Thunderbolt's toughness. The Luftwaffe's miscalculation. Why did Germany misjudge so badly? The answer lies in the mindset of technological superiority. The Luftwaffe, having triumphed in Poland, Norway, and France, assumed that modern design alone guaranteed victory. Its intelligence branch emphasized performance metrics while neglecting logistical and human factors. They underestimated Britain's radar network, command and control system, and pilot training pipeline. Most of all, they misunderstood morale. A pilot who trusts his machine fights with confidence. British airmen knew that the Hurricane could absorb hits, glide home with half a wing shot away, and land safely on grass. That faith transformed technical adequacy into combat excellence. When the Luftwaffe finally withdrew daylight raids in October, its leaders privately conceded that the Hurricane had been far more dangerous than expected. Galland later wrote that, "The British fighter we laughed at turned out to be the real enemy." Beyond 1940, the Hurricane's global legacy. After the Battle of Britain, the Hurricane continued to serve in almost every theater of war. In the deserts of North Africa, tropicalized variants blasted German convoys. In the Soviet Union, hundreds supplied under Lend-Lease defended Murmansk and Stalingrad. In the Far East, the rugged fighter fought the Japanese over Burma and Malaya. Each new campaign confirmed its virtues: simplicity, reliability, and strength. While faster aircraft replaced it in frontline units, the Hurricane became the ideal ground attack platform, strafing columns and tanks with rockets and bombs. By war's end, more than 14,000 had been built. Few other fighters of the era matched such global service or longevity. Paper specifications versus combat reality. The Hurricane's story embodies a timeless truth of warfare: statistics can mislead. Performance tables may show superiority in speed or climb, but combat is chaos, not mathematics. Visibility, stability, and repair time often decide survival. In 1940, the Luftwaffe trusted numbers, the RAF trusted experience. The Hurricane was slower but steadier, less glamorous but more forgiving, less advanced but more adaptable. When the battle came, those qualities mattered most. The aircraft that intelligence officers dismissed as obsolete became the keystone of victory. For the men who flew it, the Hurricane was more than a machine, it was a comrade. Pilots spoke to their aircraft, patted its instrument panel before takeoff, and felt genuine affection for its stubborn strength. When they taxied out to face overwhelming odds, they knew they were not flying relics. They were flying the defenders of freedom. Critical dates revisited. The 10th of May 1940 Hurricanes meet the Luftwaffe over France, the first revelation that the obsolete fighter can win. The 15th of August 1940 The greatest air battle, Hurricanes inflict devastating losses. The 15th of September 1940 Battle of Britain Day, decisive victory halts invasion plans. The 18th of August 1940, the hardest day, Hurricane squadrons endure massive raids yet prevail. Each date represents not only tactical success but also the erosion of German confidence. Every downed bomber, Every safe return of a patched-up Hurricane chipped away at the myth of Luftwaffe invincibility. The human cost and triumph. Victory came at a price. Over 500 RAF fighter pilots died defending Britain in 1940. Many flew Hurricanes. Their sacrifice ensured that invasion never came, that Britain remained a base from which the eventual liberation of Europe could be launched. Their courage lives on in museum hangars and restored aircraft that still fly today. When modern spectators watch a Hurricane rise into the sky, they witness more than machinery. They see a symbol of quiet strength, of endurance against overwhelming odds. In a war often remembered for its technological marvels, the Hurricane reminds us that craftsmanship, determination, and trust can outweigh even the most advanced weapon. Conclusion. The fighter that won the battle. When the Luftwaffe's intelligence officers dismissed the Hawker Hurricane as obsolete, they judged it by appearance and arithmetic. They saw fabric where there should have been metal, thickness where there should have been streamlining. They failed to see what truly mattered, the union of dependable engineering and indomitable human spirit. The Battle of Britain proved that speed is meaningless without resilience, that elegance cannot replace toughness, and that a nation's defense depends as much on maintenance crews as on aces. The Hurricane, often overshadowed by the Spitfire's fame, earned its own immortality through relentless service. By the time the last sorties ended, it had destroyed more enemy aircraft than all other British fighters combined. Its pilots turned ridicule into respect, and its fabric-covered wings carried the weight of freedom. The Messerschmitt pilots thought they knew what they would face. They were catastrophically wrong.